Greetings and hey there, hello there, hi teachers. Welcome to the Scrappy Piano Teacher Podcast. My name is Jacqueline Rosick, but of course you can call me Jackie. And if you are new here, welcome. I am so glad that you are here. This podcast is for teachers who are creating meaningful, magical, musical experiences for their students while also trying to build studios that are realistic and sustainable. And today is very special. Do you want to know why? Can you guess? It's not my birthday, but it is an anniversary. I guess it is kind of a birthday. I don't know. Anniversary, birthday. It is the start of the third season of this podcast. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate all that. So with that, I actually had a whole other episode lined up for today. It was all planned. It was all written. I was going to do a little reflecting, talk about where the podcast has been, where it is going, what I have learned, what I am changing, all that good stuff. But then, I decided at the last minute that I was going to change it and talk about how we should charge tuition instead because, hey, that's just what we do around here. That's just part of the Scrappy experience, right? That's okay. But I do want to give you a quick version before we get into today's topic. So last year around this time for the second season, I completely rebranded the podcast. It used to be the Music Teacher Mastermind because I do masterminds and I thought, oh, these conversations are amazing. I should record them. But then I ended up changing it to the Scrappy Piano Teacher because it just fit me and what I would like to help spread to teachers, all of my piano teacheriness. I don't know. It just fit me a lot better. And I do think it was a much better decision. And moving forward, it's not going to be much different. I'm going to stick more with a bi-weekly format with the focus leaning more into the business side of teaching. Sometimes it will be me flying solo with a topic that has been rattling around in my brain. Sometimes it will be interviews. Sometimes those interviews will be focused on the business side of teaching. And sometimes they will just be something completely different. Whatever I think is important for teachers to know is what I will be discussing because I guess that's just the beauty of having your own podcast. And my Scrappy snippets, if you remember some of those are my shorter little teacher thoughts, encouragements, and hey, it's okay. Don't go selling all of your instruments this week kind of moments. Those are going to go more into my emails from here on out for my email list instead of becoming midi podcast episodes between the regular episodes. So if you want those, make sure you're subscribed at www.scrappypianoteacher.com. But I do want to say this. I really recommend going back in time and listening to some of the interviews I had during the Music Teacher Mastermind podcast in my first season. And I was still learning how to do this whole podcast thing. I still feel like such a newbie. I still feel so new at this. But back in the Music Teacher Mastermind era, I had interviews with some really amazing teachers with great advice and absolutely fantastic resources that I still use because I interviewed them. And the second season really was no exception with my interviews. I didn't have as many, but I had some really great guests there too, along with episodes where we tackle topics that can sometimes feel a little scary to talk about with other teachers because it can get a little controversial. But this podcast has always grown from the conversations that teachers are actually having. That's what's inspiring every episode that I have. And sometimes those conversations are going to be a little controversial and you're not always going to agree with me, or you're going to be like, wow, Jackie, that was amazing. And that's okay. That's why these conversations, they just need to keep going. They need to keep happening. But the whole point is that they need to start and we need to have them. There are these questions that keep popping up, these problems that we keep trying to solve, and the moments where we stare at our studio calendar and wonder why we keep doing this to ourselves. And we're like, oh, that's right, because we love music and we love teaching. But we just have to make sure that we're making a good living from it and building something that we can actually sustain in the long run. So now I'm going to kind of do a little pivot because that brings us to our topic today, which is pricing. And I definitely think that pricing absolutely 100 million% falls into one of those conversations that can become a little controversial. And I get that. So I really have put a lot of thought into my approach to this in a variety of ways. But let me tell you what really set this episode into motion. So a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with another teacher who was thinking about raising her rates in the fall. I think a lot of us are kind of that's simmering in our brains around this time. And based on what she was sharing with me, it sounded like a rate increase was not only reasonable for her situation, but it's pretty necessary for her situation. But that whole pricing thing, it's delicate because we are not just talking about numbers here. There's so much more that goes into it. We are talking about families that we are supporting. We are talking about loyalty, guilt, fear, confidence, and that very specific teacher feeling of, am I even allowed to be asking for this? Am I even worthy to be asking for this? Do I have the education to back myself up? Or do I have the experience to back myself up? I do not think that most teachers are struggling because they're incapable of doing the math, although yes, we are going to talk about the math too. I think a lot of teachers struggle because they simply just don't feel confident enough in the number to actually say it out loud and to move forward with it. Maybe you figure out your number and they think, that's too high. I can't charge this. There's no way I could ever charge this. I would lose half my studio and I would never get anybody new because that price is just ridiculous. Or they feel really good about their number. And then the second it is time to send that email and update the policy and say the number to a prospective parent or actually follow through with the change, all of that confidence just simply evaporates. That's what I'm hoping to help you with today. I'm hoping to help you out because I've been there. I'm not a confrontational person by any means. And I get all like sweaty and hivey. I get like hives when I'm having these confrontational conversations with people, and money just is that way. That's just how it is. So now listen, I do not want you to just come up with a tuition number. I want you to build a tuition number that you understand. A number that has reasoning behind it, and a number that fits your studio, and a number that you can communicate clearly, and a number that you can actually implement, because those are not always the same thing. You can have a number that looks good, but if you can't say it aloud without apologizing or immediately are backtracking the second that someone feels uncomfortable, then we probably need to strengthen the foundation underneath that number and give it some confidence. So going back to the teacher that I was talking with, as we were having this conversation, I mentioned a few tuition calculators that I really liked, or that I really like, not past tense. I still like them. And I will link those in the show notes for you. And let me tell you, the thing about tuition calculators is they can be so much fun. I mean, really, you can have a little geeky blast with them. So I recommended a few to her thinking, well, she's going to love this. This is going to be great. It's going to solve her problems. She'll be able to play around with the numbers and just see what makes sense. But then she responded to me later with something that just, I was like, oh, she basically said, okay, Jackie, these calculators are great, but you still have to know what number to put in. And she was in a place where she just didn't know if this number was going to be quote unquote allowed. And I thought, yes, that is the whole thing, because the calculator is helpful, but she wanted me to just give her a number and be like, yeah, based off of what you've told me, boom, 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 this is the number. Take it. Take this number. And it's almost like it takes the responsibility off, right? But I can't do that. And I'll tell you why. I can't decide how much you need to earn. I can't decide your values for you or make the decision of how many students you can realistically carry from a time, energy, administrative, and teaching quality standpoint. I can't decide whether you want to teach only private lessons, add partner lessons, do groups, camps, and how you want to build in your admin time. I can't decide whether the number I might suggest to you is a number that you can actually trust enough to communicate. It has to come from you. So today, I don't want to necessarily talk about the exact number that you should charge, because again, I can't answer that for every teacher, but I do want to talk about how can you build a number that is more sustainable, more personalized, and easier to stand behind for you. And before I get into this, I do want to say that if this episode starts to feel overwhelming, or if you're thinking like, well, I don't have time to go up, look at all these resources she's mentioning. Great. It's in her show notes. Well, now I got to do all this research on my own. It's okay. It's fine. You're fine. I do have a workshop coming up where I've already been doing a lot of that digging for you. So I will be sharing more details about that workshop at the end of this episode. It is coming up in June. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely hang with me till the end here. Okay. So after working with teachers over the past few years, I have noticed that a lot of us start pricing from outside numbers. We start with what we paid for lessons years ago with our own teacher and whatever they charged at the time. Or if that teacher is still around, we might even reach out and say, hey, how much are you charging now? Or what do you think I should charge? Some teachers ask a friend who lives nearby and teaches. Some teachers look up nearby studios at music schools, and then we have some comparison that is starting. And we might think, well, that studio has a big music school. They have all these teachers with degrees. They've been there for years and years, and there's no way I could start charging as much as them. And then what often happens is that teachers end up, undercharging. Not always, but very often. I would definitely say more often than not. And I'm not saying that those starting points are useless. I'm saying that I just don't think they're strong enough to hold the entire pricing decision alone. Because when you do start too low, if you start teaching, and a lot of you probably have been through this, if you start teaching too low, it can be so hard to build up from there. What I'm trying to say is looking around can give you context, but it's not going to give you your answer. And personally, I do not really look around much at all. I cannot even really tell you what a lot of teachers around me in my area charge. I might have a general idea, but I really don't pay attention to it. And here's why. When I look at another teacher's rate, it is not going to tell me the expenses that they have. It does not tell me their income needs. It does not tell me their schedule or their studio model. The value that they provide for those students might be completely different than mine. Also, their experience. Our experience is all going to be different. It doesn't tell me their education, and it definitely does not tell me whether they are completely exhausted from the way they are currently running their studio. So yes, context can be helpful, but copying is not a pricing strategy. And honestly, I just would never go there as my main way of deciding. Now, a quick note while I'm on this topic, because this matters a lot. When I say it can be helpful to understand the pricing landscape, I absolutely do not mean gathering a bunch of local teachers and comparing current rates or planned increases. In 2 weeks for my next episode, I have a great podcast with Karen Thixton over the MTNA survey for 2024. It is so good. You guys, what she has to say is fantastic. You're going to love it. But we talk more about antitrust concerns and why professional teacher groups need to be really careful with pricing conversations. So we will get into that more in that episode. But for today, what I'm trying to say is please do not go around asking everyone to tell what they charge and then collectively decide together that this is what everyone is going to charge, because that is a no. Do not do that. Please do not do that. And do not quote me as saying that I tell you to do that. Don't do it. Okay, this is where I want to bring in a pricing framework that has helped me think about this a lot more clearly. I'm always listening to these audiobooks on small businesses, but I like to kind of step away from the music teacher small business books sometimes. I love those too, don't get me wrong, but I love to step outside of them. And one that I really, really like with a phenomenal small business pricing structure is called How to Price Effectively. And it's by Utpal Dholakia. And I can almost guarantee that I did not say this person's name correctly. There's no way I said this person's name correctly. And I'm sorry. It's probably absolutely beautiful when they say it, but I never get these names right. So it doesn't matter. I will link the book in the show notes. I am sorry, beautiful named person, but I love their book and it's great. I wanted to take a few pieces from that framework and translate them into music teacher language. Not every detail or case study. We're not going to turn this into a business school lecture, but I do want to take the parts I think are the most helpful for independent music teachers to try to set a price with more confidence. And the first one is cost. All right. Now, this sounds obvious, but I think this is where a lot of teachers accidentally skip a few layers. We think, okay, what do I need to make? what do I need to make? And that is part of it, of course. But your cost is not only your personal income goal, it is also the cost of running the studio. It is the software, the payment processing fees, the website, recital expenses, books, materials, sheet music, your professional development, insurance, taxes, supplies, all those little things that are going to quietly add up in the background. It is also the time that you spend planning, the time that you spend writing emails, creating your systems, the time you spend updating your calendar, doing all these little tiny invisible tasks that make the studio actually function in the background. And then, yes, your paycheck belongs in there too. So your paycheck is not just extra. Your paycheck is not the thing that happens if there's anything left over. And if the only way your studio works is by underpaying yourself, but still paying for the business expenses, then the business model itself is just not working. So we just need to try to give the number better information behind it. The first question is not going to be, what does everyone else charge? The first question is going to be, what does the studio actually need to bring in to operate in a healthy way? And that means actually writing it out. You might have to get out the pen and pencil and do some calculating. How much does your studio need to bring in annually? How much do you need to pay yourself? How much do you need for taxes? Are summer months slower? Do you need to save up for summer? Set some aside. Do you have goals? Are you planning for retirement? Are you hoping to take a maternity leave someday? Are you trying to save for a studio move? Do you want new equipment? Continuing education? These things matter, because when you know what the studio actually needs, your numbers stop feeling like something like, oh, this sounds nice, but it starts becoming part of a real business model. Okay, number 2. So we did cost. Now it's going to be capacity. Now, capacity is not exactly the same thing as cost, but for music teachers, I think it has to be right next to it. So this is where teachers can get into trouble, because a lot of us look at available hours and call them teaching hours, but they're just not the same thing. So just because you're technically free from 2 to 8 on a Tuesday does not mean that you can sustainably teach every minute from 2 to 8 on a Tuesday. I mean, maybe you can for a while, but for how long and at what cost? Capacity is not just how many students can I squeeze into the schedule. Capacity is how many students can I carry while still teaching well, communicating clearly, running the studio, and not resenting the sound of the next student coming in. And your capacity might look different in different seasons. What I'm trying to say is all this stuff matters, because if your price is too low, you may need more students than you can realistically carry. And then we call it burnout. And sometimes it is burnout, but sometimes it is also math. If you need a certain amount of income, but your rate requires you to teach a number of students that your body, brain, calendar, and family cannot sustain, then the pricing model needs to be revised. So when you're building your tuition number, you need to ask, how many teaching hours are actually realistic for me? Not how many hours could I technically fill if I ignored all admin, all planning, all meals, all recovering, bathroom, go to the bathroom, all family life, all common sense. I mean, how many teaching hours can I realistically carry in a way that lets me keep doing this work well? Then once you know your income needs and your real capacity, these numbers, they become so much more clear. Okay. So we're going to call the third piece customer value. And this is where we have to stop thinking only in lesson minutes, because if we only describe tuition as 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes at the piano with us, then we have trained our families to evaluate our entire studio by the clock. And the lesson time matters, of course. I think this is why we have a hard time wrapping our brains around this. But we need to remember that families are not only paying for minutes, and they need to know that too. They need to understand that too. They are paying for the experience. They're paying for all the planning that you put in. You guys plan like crazy. I know you do, because I talk to you. The communication, all these emails that we're putting out, the systems that we're putting together, the calendars, the structure, all these events that you put together, that takes time. Oh my gosh. Even if you're not running the event, just entering your students into the event, collecting the money, you know what I'm talking about. It takes time. The encouragement, the emotional baggage, the adaptation, the long-term musical growth, and the fact that you're bringing experience and judgment into the room every single week. You are the expert, my friends. You guys are better at this than you think that you are. They are paying for the way you know when to push a student and when to back off. They're paying for the way that you choose the music. They're paying for the way that you prepare that student for the recital. They are paying for the way that you communicate, and they're paying for the way that you build confidence. And I know that that can feel weird to say, and it can feel like we are kind of bragging or maybe trying to inflate things, but we're not. We're just naming the actual value because that is what it is. And when you can name the value, you can communicate the price with more clarity, not being so defensive and not feeling or thinking that you're arrogant because you're not. It just is giving clarity. If you sit down and write out the customer value and what you give to your parents, you'll probably be pretty amazed at how awesome you are because you're just amazing. Love it. Okay. The fourth piece is reference pricing. And this is the one I think we have to handle very carefully as music teachers. I really struggled with this when I was listening to this book and really putting this together because I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm just not, I don't know. In a lot of small businesses, reference pricing means looking at what customers are used to paying for something similar. And yes, it does matter. Families do not come into our studios with a completely blank brain. They have probably seen another studio's price. They've probably asked around. They may remember what lessons cost when they were kids. So remind them kindly of inflation, right? It's changed just a little bit, but they might have a friend whose child takes lessons somewhere else. And so they've done some comparison. What I'm trying to say is they may have some kind of number floating around in their brains. Another reference point some teachers look at is median household income in the area that they serve. And I do think that this can be useful, but only as context. It can help you understand the general economic landscape of your community. It can help you remember that families do have real budgets and we cannot completely ignore the community specifically that we are serving. But I would treat that information very carefully because it's still not a pricing formula. Your students may not all come from the zip code where you live or you teach, and your area may have a really wide range of household income. So maybe the median does not tell the whole story. You may teach families who are coming from a completely different part of town, and you may be serving families who are intentionally prioritizing music education at a higher level. A family's spending is not only about income, it's also about priorities, family size, their debt, goals, values, and what they believe the lesson experience is worth. So yes, median income can be a useful reference point, and I do use this, but it is not in charge of your tuition, but it can give you a good idea. And here is where I think reference pricing gets especially tricky for us. If music teachers as an industry have a habit of undercharging, then using the going rate in your area as your main reference point can actually keep you undercharging too. Okay, so recently I started drum lessons for my son. When I say recently, I mean like last week. And his teacher came highly recommended. And when he told me the price, I was like, well, that's a steal. He should definitely be charging more. Now, I did not say that to him because nobody needs me showing up to my child's drum lesson or calling up my drum teacher and being like, hi, I have a piano teacher podcast and I would like to discuss your pricing strategy. I'm not going to do that. At least not yet, not on lesson one. But it did make me think about how parents respond to price because I'm in that place right now, right? Because when it comes to my son, I want him to have a good teacher. I want him to have quality lessons. If the teacher recommends a certain book or a piece of equipment or something that will help him, I'm going to figure out a way to make that happen if I can. And yes, every family has a budget that is real. There will always be families who truly cannot afford a certain price, and that does not make them bad families or not care by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. But it also does not mean that your price is wrong. Now, if you want to make an exception for a family, then do so. Like if this is something where there's a mutual respect and that's going to be something that you guys want to decide on one-to-one, then, do what you need to do and what you think is right. But as a whole, it doesn't need to be that way. It does not need to be advertised that you might make adjustments for one-on-one, right? There's going to be different studios for different needs, different budgets, and different seasons. But I think sometimes teachers assume parents are always looking for the cheapest option, and that is not always true. A lot of parents are looking for quality. I was looking for quality for drums. They're looking for somebody they can trust. I was looking for somebody I could trust. They're looking for a teacher who knows what they're doing. Hello, that's what I was doing. They're looking for someone who will take care of their child and help them grow. and feel good about it. So yes, reference pricing matters, but I do not want us to use it as a ceiling. I want us to use it as a context. Let me tell you something. This drum teacher, we've had one lesson. If he raises his rates, I would be like, okay, I'm not going to go anywhere. I've had one lesson with this guy. So just think about all the years of trust you have built with your studio families. They're not going to run away as quickly as you think they are. And definitely do not gather a group of teachers and collectively decide what everyone should charge. Again, listen to the next episode and you'll understand more about those antitrust concerns, because Karen Fixon, she puts this, she explains it so eloquently and beautifully. And yeah. So in this framework, I would not let reference pricing be the boss. Did I get my point across? I think I did. Okay. All right. Fifth piece. I know this is a lot of information. Sorry. Maybe this should have been 2 episodes, but it's not. So the fifth piece, I'm going to call it value proposition. I've been talking a lot about value, and I know this sounds a little businessy, but for a music teacher, it can be very simple. Your value proposition is basically your answer to this question: why this studio at this price? Okay. If you understand your value proposition, you're going to communicate your price to your students' parents so much more confidently and more clearly. You're not writing some cheesy sales paragraph or making a brochure or anything like that. It's just, again, making you communicate it without shrinking. So for a music studio, that might sound like: my tuition includes weekly lessons, individualized planning, parent communication, studio events, and a structured year designed to help students make steady progress, musical progress. Actually, I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to see if I can find my own policy, because I'm almost positive it's mine. All right, I found it. So Piano Cats is the name of my studio, FYI. Piano Cats with a K, because I like it. But anyway, all right. Registration gives each student a membership of the Piano Cat Studio for a full year. Memberships include 36 events, 4 optional events, and workshops, unlimited access to Piano Cat Studio license purchases, materials, books, and music, and access to 6+ evaluations. Registration includes all lessons. What I could add to that easily, let's see here, is I could say it also includes maybe my professional development, administrative hours, and a structured year designed to help students make steady musical progress. So that's probably what I could add. So I hope that this gives you a little bit of thought in that. So yeah, that sentence does not have to go into your policy exactly like that, but you need to know it for yourself and you need to feel really, really good about it. Because when you cannot explain the values, you're gonna soften the price. You're going to apologize. You're going to start over explaining. You're going to start beating the dead horse like Jackie does in her podcast. You're going to write 3 extra paragraphs trying to make everyone feel amazing and so much better and all that stuff. And you're going to end up sending an email or having a conversation where it sounds like you're asking permission to run your own business. And I say this with love because I understand it. I've been there. I've written those emails. I've had those conversations. But when you understand the value, your communication gets calmer and you're more confident, and it just is a fact. And people don't push back because they accept it. They're like, oh, okay, this isn't a conversation. It is what it is. If my students can take lessons, this is how it is. So a value proposition doesn't have to be loud or pushy or look at me in my amazing studio, I'm so awesome. No, it just needs to be clear. This is what I offer. This is what tuition includes. This is how the studio is structured. This is why the number makes sense. And it's going to give you clarity for that communication. Okay, the 6th piece. I know. You're like, Jackie, aren't you done? I'm not done. I'm almost done. Okay. So the 6th piece is price execution. The price execution is where your number, it's real. It's existing. It's in there. So when are you announcing it? Are you giving families enough notice? Is it connected to your fall registration? That's a great time to do it. Are new families starting at the new tuition first and you're going to grandfather current families? Are the current families moving to the new tuition at a clear date? Does your policy match the tuition? Does your calendar support the tuition? Does your billing structure make sense? Are you communicating it clearly? Because a good number with a messy rollout will still feel stressful. So you might accomplish everything that we talked about before and you're like, yes, I got it. This is my number. I'm happy with it. And, then it just all gets messed up. So again, though, this goes back to having confidence. If you have confidence, this is not going to be a very hard piece of the puzzle. If you've done the work behind the number, you are much more likely to communicate it clearly and actually follow through. And you're more likely to put it in the policy, on the website. Saying it to a new parent is not going to be scary. Sending it to current families, it always feels a little icky because, it's money, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. And you're going to be more likely to hold the boundary when somebody asks for an exception. So, doesn't mean you stop caring and all that stuff, but you're not going to apologize for it. So you can be kind and you can be clear at the same time. You can have a sustainable business and still care about your families. You can still be a thoughtful person and love your students while saying, hey, this is the tuition for the upcoming year. So when teachers say, I just need to know what to charge, I get it. I really do. But the better question is, what price supports the studio I am actually trying to run? And this is where that confidence comes from. All right, the final piece. Finally, I know. I'm not going to put the clapping sound effect in, even though I'm so tempted to, but I'm not going to. But the final piece, dun, 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 is evaluation. Is everybody super excited about this? Because remember, we're not measuring the feelings, right? We're doing the business metrics. So evaluation means asking better questions. Did most of my family stay? Did your income improve? This is where you look back and you ask, did this pricing actually work? So this is after the fact, right? After it's been going on, after you rolled it out, maybe it's been going on for a few months, maybe a year, maybe you're evaluating last year, maybe you raised rates last year and you're going to evaluate yourself and the whole business metric of it all. Okay. So evaluation means asking better questions. Did most of my family stay? Did my income improve enough to make a difference? Did my schedule feel more sustainable? Did I need fewer students to reach my goals? Did inquiries still come in? Was the communication clear? Did the number match the studio that I'm actually trying to run and build? And did I feel more grounded sharing it? Pricing is not something you figure out once and you never touch again. It's something you're going to revisit as your studio, your life, your expenses, your energy, and your teaching model change. You're probably going to revisit it every single year. And that is actually good news because it means you are allowed to evolve and it means that you're in control of your business. Your studio at year 2 does not have to be priced like your studio at year 12. Your studio when your kids are little does not have to be structured like your studio when your kids are grown and out of the house. So let's bring this back to the teacher who said the thing about those calculators is you still have to come up with a number. Yes, you do. But you do not have to pull that number out of thin air. You can build it from your costs, your capacity, the value families receive. You can understand reference pricing without letting it control you. You can create a clear value proposition. You can plan how to roll it out and you can evaluate whether it is actually working. And then guess what? Bada bing, bada boom. You are a successful small business owner. This is how your tuition number is going to give you a backbone. Not because we want to be robots in the business area. Absolutely not. We're teachers. We love people. We care about people. We love our students. We care about them. We care about these relationships, but caring about people does not mean building a studio that's going to drain you and make you not be able to pay the bills. Okay. You want to retire. You want to enjoy your life too. Being thoughtful about pricing, you guys, it doesn't make you greedy, doesn't make you a bad teacher. I'm not a bad teacher because I'm raising my rates and because I took all of May off, all that. It doesn't mean I don't care about my students. I love my students, but I also love them and respect them to understand that I need to love and respect myself in the process as well. Now, listen, I had more, but this went on way too long. And so I'm going to start wrapping it up. If this episode is making your brain just start spinning in a good way, you're thinking, okay, I want to look at my pricing, but I do not want to do this completely by myself, then come join me for the Policy Pyramid and Calendar Workshop. It is on June 19th at noon Eastern Time. It is $25, and we're going to work through how your policies, tuition, calendar, and actual teaching life fit together. You're going to get a workbook. You're going to get some one-on-one time. I mean, you're going to get far more than $25 worth. I promise you that. This is especially helpful if you're tired of making studio decisions from, well, I guess this is what everyone else does, or this sounds good. I guess I'll do this. I don't know. Sounds good to me. We're going to slow it down. We're going to look at the pieces. We're going to help you build something that actually supports your studio because, again, I get it. This kind of thing does not automatically come naturally to all of us. It has not come naturally to me. I've had to dig, research, test, rethink, and untangle a lot of this. But it's also why I love sharing it and I love working with you guys. So if you want support and you want to work through this with a group of teachers, I will put the registration link in the show notes, but you can also just go to www.scrappypianoteacher.com. It is underneath Scrappy Sessions and you can register there. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time on Scrappy Piano Teacher Podcast. Do not forget to hit subscribe on whatever platform you are listening or watching this on. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.